Okay, this is Math 2, Unit 10, Lesson 5, Solving Quadratic Equations. Does everybody have this down already? Yes? Okay. Do you remember, I did not go over this worksheet yet, but this was yesterday's assignment. Do you guys remember this, that we did some of these together? Okay, I want to focus on parabolas. This parabola right here had how many x-intercepts? Okay, where this one, did this one also have 2? This one had what? None, and this one over here had 1. So those are the 3 scenarios with quadratic functions. So I'm going to quickly draw 3 images up here. 1. I hear some side conversations that I need to stop. Okay. So it doesn't matter if your parabolas are opening up or down. I'm just going to make them all open up. There's one where there's 2 solutions. Actually, I'm going to make this one open down. There's one where it's 1 solution. And what would have to happen in order for it to have no solution? No x-intercepts, I apologize. There's 2 x-intercepts, 1 x-intercept. What would the graph have to look like in order for it to have no x-intercepts? Okay, so if I put my vertex, say, up here, what direction would the parabola have to open in order for it to have no x-intercepts? It would have to open up. What if I put it down here? What direction would the parabola have to open? Down. Okay, so this here is 2 x-intercepts. This is how many x-intercepts? 1. And the last one is what? None. No x-intercepts. So 2, 1, or none. Would we ever have more than 2, like 3 or 4? No, these parabolas don't ever come back down and touch the x-axis again. So 2, 1, or none. Those are the only 3 possibilities we will ever have for x-intercepts when we are dealing with quadratic functions. Got it? Now, what this means as far as real solutions go. Have you guys talked, I know we've talked a little bit about real numbers before. No? Okay. This means there's 2 real solutions, 1 real solution, no real solution. I'm going to write that down really quick. 2 real solutions, 1 real solution. Why would I have to use the word real? Is there such a thing as fake solutions? No, but there is such a thing as imaginary solutions. That would happen here because this one is no real solution. There's no real solution to the function, whatever parabola I graphed here. That function, when I said equal to 0 and solve, would have no real solution, which means it would have imaginary solutions. Imaginary numbers is a concept we will deal with on our next unit. Okay, so for now, 2 real solutions, 1 real solution, or no real solution. Got it? Or 2 x-intercepts, 1 x-intercept, no x-intercept. Okay, we are going to solve and state the number of x-intercepts. Okay, this first one, I am going to write a little different from the way you see it on your worksheet, and then I'll explain as I go. Number 1, y equals 2x squared minus 5. Okay, everybody listening. If I am looking for an x-intercept, and I did do this with you guys when we did the homework notes in class. If you're looking for an x-intercept, when you do your ordered pair, which one is 0, the x value or the y value? Do you guys remember that? Here it is right here. Here are the homework notes. X-intercept is blank 0. Do you guys remember that? So if I'm looking for an x-intercept, what letter am I going to make equal to 0, x or y? Y. All right. 0 equals 2x squared minus 5. Any thoughts on how to solve this? I'm trying to solve for x. I'll take any suggestions from anyone. Isolate the variable. Is that something you guys have done before? Okay, so what am I going to do? Divide 2 or add 5 first? Add 5. Add 5. These are definites on the test. 0 plus 5 is 5 equals 2x squared. Divide both sides by 2. 2 is gone. Do you guys agree that 2 reduces? I'm just going to move the x squared over here. X squared equals 5 halves. Now, those of you that took Math 2, or Math 1, sorry, Math 1 here last year, if you took Math 1 here at Clovis West last year, did you guys solve equations like this? X squared equals 5 halves. No? Does anybody know how to solve this, whether you were here or another school, or yes? Okay, can you tell me where you learned that at? Here, Math 1 last year here. So you guys have seen it. That's what I just wanted to know. Okay, you may not all remember it, but he's saying you square root both sides. That is correct. Why do we square root both sides? Because we've done these before. What happens with the square root and the squared? They undo each other. You'll learn more of this next year and the year after. Those are called inverse functions. Square root and x squared, they undo each other. You may not remember this, but in elementary school, you learned that the addition was the inverse of subtraction because you see how they undo each other? And then you learned the inverse of multiplication was division, so when I divide, they undo each other. Now the inverse of x squared is the square root. They undo each other. All right, x equals, the one thing you have to remember, when you square root, not when a square root is given, when you square root both of the sides of an equation to solve, you will always put plus or minus. X equals plus or minus root 5 over 2. Can I reduce 5 halves? No. So I'm going to write it like this. And can anybody tell me why? You take a test, you get this far, why I would mark it wrong. This is from last semester. Okay, she whispered it, and some of you may not have heard it. Those of you who didn't hear it, does anybody know why? Why would you get this wrong on a test? Louder. Can we have a, oh, because I wrote them separate? Okay, you're telling me how to simplify it. Can I have a radical in the denominator? No. Do you remember what the process was called? Starts with an R-A-T. Rationalize. Good job. We multiply top and bottom by what? Root 2, root 2. X equals plus or minus. What's root 5 times root 2? Am I allowed to multiply them together and get root 10? All over. And the whole reason we do this is because root 2 times root 2 is 2. Some kids will say 4, but it's the square root of 4, which is 2. Does that make sense? All right, this is a definite on the test or even on today's worksheet. You need to know how to set that up. Okay, another one, number 2. Y equals 5x squared plus 100. Okay, so we're going to do the same steps we did over here. Isolate. What do I do first? Yes. Yes. Good question. And I should have asked that before moving on. So let me ask you first. By simplifying, do you mean reducing these two numbers? Okay, so let's ask that first. Am I allowed to reduce a radical with a non-radical? No. So can I reduce it? No. But what I should have asked and didn't is, can you break down the 10 to get any pairs to come out? 5 and 2, do any pairs come out? No, so that's your answer. If that was, say, root 12 or root 8 or root 24, you'd have to break it down and take out the pairs. Yes?
Don't we also have to find the number of
Thank you. Yes, we do. The second question here, state the number of x-intercepts. What are our possibilities? 2, 1, or none? How many solutions do I have here? 2, 1, or none? 1? Does anybody know why it's 2? Anyone know why it's 2? Because technically, okay, I'm going to take a step back. Do you guys know what this means? Have you guys seen that symbol before, plus or minus? Yes? Okay, this just means positive root 10 over 2 or negative root 10 over 2. I never really write it this way, but are these... Yes or no? If you're taking a test, it's multiple choice, and you get this as your answer, but the multiple choice has it written this way. Should you know it's the same thing? Ladies, I need you to stop the talking. Okay, should you know it's the same thing? Yes or no? Yes. How many solutions are here? How many x-intercepts? 2. 2 x-intercepts. This right here is all you have to do. I just want to make you aware that if I were to write these as ordered pairs, we're not going to do that today, but I'm just showing you for this one problem. It would be root 10 over 2, comma, what? 0. And negative root 10 over 2, comma, 0. So your parabola, it is positive. It would look like this. That intercept would be root 10 over 2, whatever that decimal is, and this solution would be negative root 10 over 2, whatever that decimal is. Positive and negative root 10 over 2. Does that make sense? Yes? All right, let's go to this one. What's our first step? Isolate the variable. Good job. Samantha, can you tell me what to do first? Okay, well, Nathaniel said isolate the x squared. So what are we going to do first? If it was 5x plus 100 and you were solving, what would you do first? Subtract 100, because the inverse of addition is subtraction. Gone. Y minus 100. Oh, what did I forget to do? Gosh darn it.
0.
Thank you. Did anybody else catch that? And you just didn't tell me anything? Okay.
I was raising my.
You were waiting?
I was raising my.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I did not see you. All right. I'm just going to white it out just so I can do that step first. So those of you that told me subtract 100, you are correct, but I just forgot this step. Why do I make y equal 0? Because I'm looking for the what? And to find the x-intercept, y has to be... If I were looking for the y-intercept, what would I do? Make what 0? X. We're going to do that another day. Okay, continuing. Subtract the 100 because subtraction is the inverse of addition. What's 0 minus 100? Equals 5x squared, and those inverses undo each other. Danielle, what do I do next? Divide 5 on both sides. Negative 100 divided by 5, excuse me, is negative what? Negative 20? 5 divided by 5, those undo each other because they're inverses of each other. X squared, what do I do to both sides? That's what Abraham told us earlier, you square root. Can we take the square root of a negative number? Can we? That's asking you, let's do a number we know. What's the square root of negative 25? If I could take the square root, 5. That means 5 times 5 is negative 25. Is that true? No? So what other possibility could we have? Negative 5. Is negative 5 times negative 5 negative 25 or positive 25? So that's not going to work. Is there any number, any real number, that I can square and get negative 25 as an answer? No. So is it possible to take the square root of a negative number? Not now. For us, not now. So we're going to say, what was it? No what? No real solution. There's an imaginary solution which we will learn more about next unit. No real solution. All right, what does that mean about the number of x-intercepts I have? How many x-intercepts do I have? None. No x-intercepts. That means my problem is opening up. It doesn't look like this. It's actually shifted up over this way more, but it's an upward parabola that never touches the x-axis. That's why there are no x-intercepts. Does that make sense? Is that a yes? Okay. I want to put this one up here really quick. Can you guys see? This is an old one you guys did. It was worksheet 1, x squared plus 1. Does everybody see that? If I was looking for the y-intercept, what would I make y? And what would I do with the 1? And what would I do to both sides? And can I take the square root of a negative? No real solution, which means what about our x-intercepts? No, it's not going to touch the x-axis. Look at the graph that we made. Did it have any x-intercepts? Does it make sense graphically as well as algebraically? Yes? Okay, we're going to continue. Any questions on 1 or 2? All right, number 3 is the way they're going to be writing it in the book. And it's actually just one step easier. Number 3, I'm going to write it as the quantity of x minus 3 squared minus 21 equals 0. What's the only difference between the way I wrote number 3's equation versus 1 and 2? What is that? It's in parentheses. Good. That does make things a little different. What else? Y is already 0. That's the only difference. They're not going to give you y's in the homework tonight. What are they going to give you? But what do we know? If y is 0, then we're looking for the what? Okay, does that make sense? If they put 0 in for y for us and we solve, we're looking for the x-intercepts. All right, so I heard the difference also is there's parentheses, there's a squared on the outside. So instead of isolating the variable right away, I'm going to try to isolate this. So what would I do with that minus 21? Add it. These are the ones that people struggle with on the test, so you really want to make sure you are paying attention. If you felt like the other ones were pretty easy, I don't need it, pay attention now because this is where kids struggle. X minus 3 quantity squared equals what? Okay, now I'm going to cover this, that squared right there. Let's pretend that squared was not there. If it was just like that, x minus 3 equals 21, and I was trying to isolate the x, what would I do? Add the 3. Does everyone agree? Can I add the 3 if it's quantity squared? No, because right now the 3 is trapped. Can you imagine that 3 being trapped in the parentheses? I cannot get it out. Does that make sense? What was that? Throw them a line? Gentlemen, I need you guys listening. Okay, so what do we do when it's like this? We think, Abraham told us earlier, how do I undo a squared? What's the inverse of squared? Square root. Can I take the square root of a big chunk like this? I can. What's going to happen with the square root and the squared? What are they going to do to each other? Are they going to undo each other? Yes, the same way they ended each other over here? Okay, so big square root, big squared are gone. I'm left with x minus 3 equals root 21. I messed up one little piece. I'm going to ask you guys in a little bit. Before I address the mess up, do you guys see how I square rooted both sides and how that works? Does anybody know where I messed up? If the squared is gone, do I need the parentheses anymore? No, unless there was a number out here to distribute, which there's not. It's right here, and this is where most kids mess up. What did I say? When you square root both sides, don't forget to what? Plus or minus. Please don't forget that. Now, if a square root's written on a worksheet or a book for you, you don't put plus or minus. It's only when you square root both sides to solve an equation. Do you guys know why you put plus or minus? You're right. So let's go back to this one over here. If I have x squared equals 25, how would I solve that? Now, if I just put 5, is 5 times 5 25? But is negative 5 times negative 5 also positive 25? So do you see when you square root both sides of an equation, you have to put plus or minus, even if it's not a perfect square? Got it? Does 21 break down into any pairs that come out? No, what does it break down to? Okay, so that's going to stay. Now, I still want to isolate the x. What do I add to both sides? 3. I'm going to squeeze the 3 right up front. Can I add the 3, positive or negative 3, with a square root number? No, I can't add these two together, so this is what your answer looks like. Are we ready? 3 plus or minus root 21. Yes, that is an answer. And that's how the answer will look. And yes, you will have some of these on the test. 3 plus or minus root 21. Why do I write it this way? Because these two are not like terms. I cannot combine them. Now, I will often have kids ask, can I write it like this? They'll add the 3 and they'll put x equals plus or minus root 21 plus the 3. Are these two things the same thing? They are. I'd rather you write it this way, but if you write it this way, it's okay, and that's not a 2. What should that be? 3. It's okay if you write it this way. I'd rather you write it that way because when we start doing quadratic formulas and solving and such, this is how we're going to write our answers. So get used to it. Questions on numbers 1, 2, or 3? Okay. Number 4 and 5, I'm going to let you guys try on your own. Negative 5 parentheses x plus 6 quantity squared plus 35 equals 0. And next one, 0 equals x plus 2 quantity squared plus 12. All right, go ahead and solve the 2 of those. You know what? Before you do, there is one thing I forgot to do on number 3. What was it? How many x-intercepts? How many do I have? Is it none? Is there any way this is none? Okay, it's either 1 or 2. It's 2. Why is it 2? Because the plus minus. 3 plus root 21 is a solution, and 3 minus root 21 is a solution. Are those going to give us 2 different decimals? They are. 2 different decimals, so we'd have 2 different x-intercepts. All right, go ahead and try those 2 now. Get to work. Can I have a volunteer tell me what the first thing you would do on number 4 is? Yes.
Wait, number 4?
That one right there, yeah.
Okay, you're in high
Add
five. Oh, wait, no, you're in minus 35.
minus 35. Okay, this one is a little different, so if anybody got stuck, don't worry. This is different than the ones I've done before. Okay, so that gives me negative 5 parentheses x plus 6 quantity squared equals what? All right, here's one kids mess up on. I'm going to cover this and cover this. What is it tempting? What would we do next if those 2 were gone? Minus the 6. But can I with that quantity squared? Can I with that negative 5? No. What do I do first? Okay, good question. Can I distribute the negative 5? I can't. Why not? If that squared was not there, could I distribute the negative 5? Yes. If there's a squared, can I distribute anything? No. Okay, so what do I do first? Get rid of the negative 5 or get rid of the squared? get rid of the negative 5. The square rooting both sides should be done after you get the parentheses by itself. So what would I do? Add 5 or divide by negative 5? Do you guys agree that negative 5 would cross out the negative 5 at the top? Yes or no? X plus 6 quantity squared equals, what does that equal on the right side? Positive or negative? Positive. All right, now I'm going to let you guys finish. Don't forget your plus or minus. All right, what did you guys do next? And what happens with the square root and the squared? They go away. They undo each other because they're inverses of each other. X plus 6 equals root 7. Where did I mess up?
Plus and minus.
Plus and minus. Good job. And what's the next step? Subtract or add the 6. It's okay if you put it at the end. I like to put it at the beginning. X equals negative 6 plus or minus root 7. How many x-intercepts do I have? Good job. 2 x-intercepts. If you feel like there's not enough room on your worksheet because it is kind of tight spaced, you can do it in a separate piece of paper. All right. This one, did anybody solve it yet? What do you subtract? Is there anything to divide on this one? No. Since there's nothing to divide, we go straight to doing what to both sides? Square rooting it. Those undo each other. Can I take the square root of negative 12? What does that mean about my real solutions? No real solutions, which means what about my x-intercepts? No x-intercepts, or 0 x-intercepts. All right. Questions? Okay, last one. Number 6. An arrow is shot, write it down with me. An arrow is shot vertically upward. So it's shot upward like this, not out straight, upward. Does that make sense? It goes up high. Does it go up forever? No, no. With an initial speed of 64 feet per second. Its height after t seconds is given by, is everybody writing it down with me? H equals negative 16 parentheses t minus 2 squared plus 64, period. All right, now here's the question. When does the arrow hit the ground? When does the arrow hit the ground? We talked about this the other day on block day, and we even got an answer, but we didn't do it this way up here. We actually used the graph, and we used what we knew about symmetry to solve. Okay, I'm just going to quickly draw this just so we know when I label my x and y axis for the flight of a ball or an arrow in this case, what does this axis represent? It represents time in seconds. And what does the y-axis represent? Height? Yes or no? Okay, so the ball goes up, 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 up. It doesn't go down forever. It comes down, 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 down. What is the vertex of this parabola here? Does everyone see it's 264? Yes? Cole, what does the 2 represent? The time it takes to what?
Get to the top.
To get to the top. Good. Does everyone agree with him? All right. Carrie, what does the 64 represent? The height. Not just any height, but the what height? The highest, the maximum height. Do you guys agree? Okay. Unfortunately, did they ask me either one of those questions? Did they ask how long it would take? No. Did they ask what is the maximum height? No. All right, we're not packing up, guys. They asked us when does the ball, or when does the arrow, hit the ground? We talked about this on block day. When does the arrow hit the ground? At 2 seconds? Okay, so let's see. It comes up, 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 up. Comes down, 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 down. Is this right here when it hits the ground? What is the height when it hits the ground? Do you agree? If it's at ground level, the height is 0. Okay, so what letter here represents the height? The T or the H? The H. Yes or no? So what am I going to plug in for the H? 0. What am I looking for if I put 0 in right there where the Y used to be? What am I looking for? The x-intercepts. Would you agree this is also an x-intercept? Does that all make sense? All right, so 0 equals negative 16 t minus 2 squared plus 64. Go ahead and solve. Subtract, divide, square root. In that order. Subtract, divide, square root. Okay, you tell me what you would do first. What would you do first here? Subtract. So that was what I said. First, subtract. So go ahead and do that on your paper. Anyone else? What would we do next? Actually, I'm going to call on Austin.
When you divide the negative 16.
Good. Is it okay if I wanted to square root first? Is it okay if I wanted to distribute the negative 16 first? No, we have to divide it. Does anybody have that number? 4 equals t minus 2 quantity squared. And Audrey, what would we do next? Square root. And what do I have to remember to put in front of this right here? Plus or minus. So I end up with, I'm going to put the t minus 2 on the left side, equals plus or minus. That one's actually a perfect squared. What do we get? Plus or minus 2. And what's our next step? Add the 2. I put the 2 in front. Now, I didn't show you one of these earlier because I'm showing you now. I can go a step further. Earlier I had to stop here and that was all I could do. Why would I get it wrong if I stopped here? Because they are what? Like terms. Were these over here like terms? No, but if they're like terms, do you have to continue? What's 2 plus 2? What's 2 minus 2? 0. Does that mean it hits the ground at 0 seconds and 4 seconds? What does the 0 represent? 4 seconds is the final answer, but why did we get 0 as an answer? Because that's when it started. It started at 0, came up, came down, and hit the ground. Yes? How did that, this 4? Square root. Cover that, what's the square root of 4? 2, right? Because of the 2 and 2. And plus or minus, where is it at? Plus or minus, because this, you always do plus or minus when you square root. Okay, really quick. When you do these word problems on your work, on a quiz, or a test, you will always get 2 answers. Should you ever use the 0?
Yes. No.
Should you ever use a negative? No. No negatives, no zeros.
I knew that. I was testing you.
All right, so 4 seconds when it hits the ground.